Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get to the heart of what matters. And this week, we've got something really special. It's a deep dive curated by the Pythonist programmer, the brilliant software engineering consultant. She's picked out the sources that really caught her eye from August 24th to 28th, 2025. So our mission today, it's really to unpack how AI isn't just like another app. It's fundamentally changing things. Our work, yeah, but also our minds, our language, even how we connect as humans. We're going to go from, the nitty-gritty of code right through to the core of human experience. It's a pretty wide scope.
It really is. And what's fascinating looking across these sources the Python has flagged is how it all connects. Coding, creativity, even mental health. They seem separate, but AI and tech are weaving them all together. We're seeing the obvious impacts, sure, but also these deeper, more subtle shifts in how we interact with the world and maybe even ourselves.
Okay, let's kick off with something that honestly maybe do a double take. This idea from the sources that AI isn't just a tool anymore. It's becoming the new operating system of work. An operating system, what does that even mean in practice? But then you see this concept of compounding engineering,
Right.
where the AI just keeps learning and improving the system permanently. Like that example of Every's email assistant, Cora. The AI fixed the code before a human even saw the problem. That's wild.
It's a huge shift, isn't it? One source, the new AI operating system of work, really dives into this. We're moving away from static things like documents and PowerPoints towards what they call instruments. Think of them as these interactive AI-powered surfaces. They don't just show you stuff. They make decisions happen. They make them executable, auditable, and really fast.
Executable and auditable. Okay, so it's not just a dashboard showing numbers. It's like a system that actually does things and tracks them.
Exactly. It's about getting rid of that bureaucratic sludge, all those meetings about the report instead of acting on it. These instruments have specific design principles, like really clearly defined inputs, typed schemas, so no ambiguity. The logic is visible, so you know why something happened. Minimal UI, so it's about function.
Okay.
And crucially, tests acting as gates. Think like a red block that literally stops an export if the data quality isn't good enough, or if you're missing an approval.
Wow, okay, so the system enforces the rules.
Precisely. Plus, built-in audit trails, everything is tracked. And clean exports, usually like JSON or Markdown, so the data can flow easily.
Right, so instead of that static weekly business review deck, it could be this live instrument with a scoreboard, real-time charts, tests flagging problems.
Exactly that. Or imagine a launch readiness gate. It won't let you click go until every single approval and piece of evidence is actually in the system and verified.
That sounds like it would save so much time arguing or chasing things down. More doing, less proving.
That's the promise. And that's why investors are getting excited. You look at folks like Sarah Tavel, Mike Maples, Nabil Hyatt, the VCs mentioned in Investing Secrets from Silicon Valley's best VCs. They're betting on founders who can turn AI into, well, they call it magic. They're looking for the Japanese toilets of AI.
Japanese toilets of AI. Okay, I love that. What does that mean?
It means products that are just delightful. They solve problems you didn't even really articulate, but once you have them, you can't imagine living without them. That blend of utility and just feeling right.
That makes sense. But, okay, if AI is this new OS, does everyone need to suddenly become an AI developer?
Not necessarily, and that's a really important point, a kind of AI reality check, maybe. Katie Parrott wrote about this in Sometimes the Best AI Solution is the One You Don't Build Yourself. She talked about building an AI editor for They went through 5 iterations, getting more and more complex.
Oh, wow.
And in the end, the best solution wasn't their custom thing. It was just using Claude's Teams feature, an existing platform.
That's humbling, in a way. But super practical.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smart move is using what's already out there and works brilliantly.
Exactly. And look at Clairvaux's Chat PRD, an AI assistant for product managers. Built it over a weekend, apparently, using existing tools. Yeah.
Seriously.
So for you listening, the question becomes really strategic. When do you invest all that time and resource building something custom? And when do you just leverage the amazing tools already available? It's about smart adoption.
Okay, so that covers the kind of operational side.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears to the human impact.
Yeah.
Because this is where things get really interesting, maybe a bit concerning too. There's new Stanford research talked about an AI is eliminating jobs for younger workers.
Right.
And it seems AI is actually eliminating some jobs, especially for younger people. It's not just theory anymore.
Yeah, the Stanford data is quite stark. They looked at sectors vulnerable to AI, like customer service, some some software development roles. And from late 2022 to mid-2025, they saw a 16% drop in employment for workers aged 22 to 25 in those areas.
16%. That's significant.
It is. But interestingly, for more experienced workers in those same fields, employment was flat or even slightly up.
Huh. So AI helps the experienced folks,
Yeah.
maybe augments them, but replaces the entry-level roles.
That seems to be the pattern emerging. AI isn't necessarily driving down wages overall, not yet anyway, but it is reshaping who gets hired, particularly at the start of their careers.
So what do we do about that?
Well, one of the researchers, Eric Brynjolfsson, suggests focusing on different benchmarks. Instead of just measuring pure automation, we should incentivize Centaur AI systems.
Centaur, like human AI teams.
Exactly. Benchmarks that measure how well humans and AI collaborate to get better results than either could alone. Shifting the focus to augmentation, putting the human at the center.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, beyond jobs.
Yeah.
What about the personal psychological side? Can AI really get us? Edmar Ferreira did this experiment, wrote about it in Has AI Gotten Good Enough to Predict My Taste? He fed 6 months of his browsing history into AI models.
Oh, brave man.
Right. And the models predicted what content he'd choose next with up to 80% accuracy.
80%.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it? Where's the line between our predictable habits and us, our unique selves? If an algorithm knows you that well, what does that say?
It's a deep question, and it leads into maybe an even more troubling area, this idea of AI psychosis. There's a piece called In Search of AI Psychosis that explores this. It sounds alarming, and thankfully it seems very rare, but there are reports of people having serious mental distress, even episodes resembling psychosis, after spending way too much time talking to chatbots.
Wait, seriously? AI psychosis? That sounds like science fiction.
Well, the term is being used. The estimated incidence is really low, maybe 1 in 10,000 people interacting heavily, perhaps even rarer, 1 in 100,000 if you use a strict definition. But it points to this potential for AI to sort of unmoor people.
How would that even work? This definitely feels like we're touching on neurocomplexity and burnout territory here.
Think about historical examples of shared delusion. Like, there was this weird incident, Lenin was a mushroom, where people believed an absurd claim just because it seemed to come from an official TV source back in the day.
Okay.
Now imagine someone whose main social interaction becomes an AI chatbot. An LLM is designed to be agreeable, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really push back or challenge strange ideas.
Right, it just kind of goes along with you.
Exactly. So if someone starts developing odd beliefs and the AI constantly validates them, it can create this echo chamber. Some are calling it fully edu ex machina, a shared delusion, but with a machine. It can amplify pre-existing tendencies, maybe push someone who's already leaning towards unusual beliefs further out because their main social connection is this constantly agreeing AI. It's often a spectrum, not always full-blown psychosis, but a definite amplification. Wow. That's genuinely chilling. The idea of an AI reinforcing delusion. Okay, let's pivot slightly, maybe to something a bit less alarming. AI and creativity. Sam Altman tweeted about some unreleased OpenAI model, probably GPT-5 related, being amazing at creative writing. And the reactions were all over the place, right? Some people were moved, others were like, nah, it's just fancy pattern matching. That piece, can AI write creatively, captured the debate.
Yeah, it's a classic question.
Yep.
Can machines truly be creative? Margaret Bowden, the cognitive scientist, has some useful ways to think about this. She talks about 3 types of creativity. There's combinational creativity, mixing existing ideas in new ways, like a clever pun or fusion cuisine.
Okay, like remixing.
Kind of. Then there's exploratory creativity, discovering new things within an existing style or conceptual space, like a jazz musician improvising within a known structure.
Right, pushing the boundaries.
And then the big one, transformational creativity. This is where you fundamentally change the whole game, redraw the map. Think James Joyce's Ulysses or Einstein's relativity.
Yeah.
Stuff that shifts the entire paradigm. Okay, 3 levels. So where do today's LLMs, like ChatGPT, fit in?
Well, the consensus seems to be they're getting really good at combinational and exploratory creativity. They can generate novel combinations, mimic styles, explore variations quite impressively. But transformational creativity, that still seems out of reach. Partly because they're inherently autoregressive. They're always predicting the next word based on the previous ones. They don't typically conceive a whole new structure from the ground up.
So they're good at working within the rules, but not breaking them in a truly fundamental way.
That seems to be the limitation. They also tend to fail something called the Lovelace test, which basically asks if an AI can create something that genuinely surprises its own programmer, something that can't be explained just by its code.
And the human element. Does real creativity need, like lived experience, struggle?
That's a major argument. Many feel true creativity, especially the transformational kind, requires that messy human stuff, emotions, suffering, unconscious thought, insights born from just living. LLMs don't have that.
But, what if creativity isn't just about the creator? Mark Twain said something like all ideas are secondhand, and postmodern thinkers, like Calvino in Cybernetics and Ghosts, argue meaning comes from the reader, right? Not just the author's intent.
That's the other side of the coin, exactly. If the output evokes a creative response in the human reader or viewer, does it matter how it was generated?
So the answer to can AI be creative is, it depends.
Pretty much. It depends on your definition. If you value combination, exploration, or the audience's interpretation, then yeah, AI is showing creative capabilities. If you demand lived experience and truly paradigm-shifting novelty, then probably not yet. It's definitely a spectrum.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this whole discussion about language, meaning, creativity, it ties into another source, right? The one about how neural networks are changing our vibes.
Yes, this one's fascinating. It argues that neural networks, the engines behind ChatGPT, recommendation algorithms, all that stuff, are acting like bottlenecks for language.
Bottlenecks. How so?
They tend to surface and promote certain ways of speaking, certain phrases. The result, the author suggests, is that we end up with flattened simulacra of language, kind of slightly more generic, homogenized ways of expressing ourselves.
So we're all subtly starting to talk like ChatGPT or like influenced by the stuff algorithms feed us.
There's evidence for it. Think about certain Trumpisms that entered common speech, or now ChatGPT-isms, people noticing words like delve, harness, leverage popping up more in everyday conversation almost unconsciously.
Huh. I think I've noticed that, actually.
We internalize and replicate language from these dominant digital sources. It relates to this philosophical idea of order words language that doesn't just describe reality, but implicitly structures it.
Okay, that sounds a bit dystopian. Are we just doomed to talk like algorithms?
Oh, maybe not entirely. The article also mentions passwords. Think of internet memes, slang, reactions against things like brain rot or algorithmic predictability. These act as a kind of resistance, a way for culture to push back and reclaim its unique vibes.
So there's a push and pull. The flattening effect and then the cultural pushback.
Interesting.
Definitely. It's about awareness, I suppose.
Right. Okay, bringing this back from the societal level to the deeply personal again. The Pythoness's sources also touched on something really human, especially relevant maybe for neurodivergent folks, limerence. That piece, Why You Can't Stop Thinking About Them, and It's Not Love, explores this intense obsessive attraction.
Yeah, limerence isn't just a crush. It's characterized by this constant dominating loop of thoughts about the person. That neurodivergent trait of hyperfocus can really latch on to someone. There are key signs, right? Thoughts about them just take over, constantly running what-if scenarios in your head, often totally detached from reality.
Like building whole movies in your mind.
Exactly. And extreme emotional reactions. Small positive signs feel euphoric. Tiny perceived slights feel absolutely catastrophic. That heightened emotional sensitivity playing a role.
That sounds exhausting. It is. It often disrupts basic routines, sleep, eating, work, because the brain is just looping. And maintaining healthy boundaries feels almost impossible. There's this compulsion to reach out, overinvest emotionally.
So it's definitely not love. It's this consuming mental state. But the article suggests it's not all bad. Can there be an upside?
Surprisingly, yes, especially if you approach it with awareness. Limerence can actually be a really powerful signal flare, highlighting unmet emotional needs. What are you really craving in that connection? It can be a tool for self-discovery, understanding your own desires, your triggers, and sometimes that intense mental energy, if you can channel it, can fuel creativity or motivation in other areas. It's like a mirror reflecting your own emotional intensity back at you. Navigated consciously, it can actually lead to growth. Ties back to that human at the center idea, understanding our complex inner worlds.
That connection to unmet needs, that intensity, it links nicely to the final piece I wanted to touch on. Why I don't create for myself alone. This one challenges that common advice artists get, just make it for yourself. It argues that performance, creating art, it's not just self-expression. It's about being witnessed.
Yes, I love this concept, the idea of the living archive.
Tell me more about that.
The author argues that a memory, a story, a piece of work, It gains real longevity. It lives when it's shared. When it's spoken aloud, held by a community, witnessed by an audience, that audience, even if it's small, becomes a living archive. They remember it, carry it forward, give it meaning beyond the creator. Think about call and response in church traditions, or West African griots telling stories, or even something modern like TikTok duets.
Right, it's the sharing, the interaction that keeps it alive and evolving.
Exactly. It's not just about getting applause. It's about the work entering a collective space, being held in memory by others. It makes the art last longer, stretches memory, strengthens the archive.
So creating isn't just a solitary act. Sharing it is fundamental to its purpose, and maybe to our human need for connection and validation.
That's the core message. It suggests that this act of sharing, of being witnessed, isn't vanity. It's tapping into a deep human need to connect and have our experiences acknowledged and remembered collectively.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, thanks to the Pythonist programmer's curation, from AI basically becoming the operating system for work.
Yeah, those executable instruments.
Right, to the impact on jobs, especially for younger workers, and those really quite startling psychological effects, like AI psychosis or how it predicts our tastes.
And the whole creativity debate, language changing.
And landing on these really profound human needs, dealing with intense states like limerence, and the fundamental need to be witnessed in our creative expression. So what's the big takeaway here?
I think if you connect all these dots, the big picture is that AI isn't just another technology. It's acting as a catalyst, maybe even a mirror, forcing us to really examine what it means to be human right now. What does it mean to work, to think, to create, to connect? When machines can do so much of what we used to consider uniquely human, the lines are blurring, things are getting complex.
It really feels like we're at an inflection point.
Definitely.
So the question for you, listening, as we wrap up this deep dive, as AI keeps accelerating, pushing these boundaries, how will you consciously choose to navigate all this? Your work? Yeah. But also your relationships, your creativity, your own inner world. How do you ensure those things stay deeply meaningful, authentically yours in the face of all this change? That's something to really mull over. A big question for the unfolding future.